Hello, I'm Anatole, and this is my review of the OA Season 2, Episode 1, titled Angel of Death, and it received a score of 9.1 on IMDb. And the highest score it received was a score of 9.3 from females ages 30 to 44. The lowest score it received was a score of 8.7 from males over 45. And what was interesting about the demographic scoring was that there was a tie between men and women 18 to 29. They all gave it a score of 9.1. And the 6 months I've been reviewing television, that's very unusual. Don't usually see such similar scores between men and women. They usually have different reaction. Director was Zal Batmanglitch. The writer was Britt Marling and Zal Batmanglitch. I checked his name on YouTube. There's a clip of him saying it, and I hope I'm getting that pronunciation correct. And I'm going to do an unusual approach on my channel. I don't normally do reaction videos, and this won't be a strictly reaction. Oops, looking at the, I was not looking at the lens. This whole time I've been looking at the microphone. Pardon me, I'm not being rude. I normally do a review of the episode, but for this particular episode, for a couple of reasons, I'm going to do a commentary, because I've already watched the episode twice. My normal MO is to watch an episode 2 or 3 times, so this will be my third viewing. So for, like I said, a couple of reasons, I felt that this warranted me doing a commentary on the episode. So in about a second or two, I'm going to cut away, and then we'll get my commentary on selected scenes of the episode. Obviously, I'm not going to screen the whole episode. And then, depending on how that goes, maybe I'll have afterthoughts. But in about 3 seconds, we'll do the commentary of the episode will begin. In 3, 2, 1. And here we go. This scene coming up, this whole intro is very interesting. There's something that they call in journalism burying the lead. It's also something they do in mystery movies or shows, is they will put the most important item to solving the mystery at the beginning. And here, where we get a scene where we see OA, Prairie, right there, and the title of the episode is The Angel of Death. So it's quite interesting that she's there and that we get this dream of someone dying. I believe that this is Kareem Washington, and so we have a hint that maybe he's also someone who has had a near-death experience or near-death experience, after-death experience, and he's also caught in this alternate universe. I'm thinking. Now this is I said there were 2 reasons why I wanted to do this commentary. This is the first. We get this Vietnamese character showing up, and
in English. Who are you?
Doctor, me sick. No, come home. No text. Need help.
right. So, and I live in Vietnam, so I was wondering, does the translation match up? Because often you get problems of translation. People say one thing, and the subtitles say that they're saying one thing, and there's not a match between what they're speaking and what the subtitles say they're supposed to be saying. And then secondly, I wondered about their pronunciation, because Vietnamese is a tonal language. So I showed this scene, and then there's a later scene where they're speaking in Vietnamese to some of my co-workers with whom I work that are Vietnamese. And this actress, her tone, she does not speak the tones. So then I looked up her bio. So that was something I would not have picked up on my own. Her name is Helene Patterat. She plays Mrs. Vu, and she was born in Vietnam, but she moved at the age of 3 to France. So what we have here is an actress speaking Vietnamese who's essentially not a native-born Vietnamese speaker. And normally that kind of thing bothers me. I think that they should be authentic. If you have For example, in old Hollywood, you would have Indians played by white people, and by that Indian I mean American Indian. And Zorba the Greek was also played by someone who was not Greek. And so I feel like you should get it right. If you got the money and the resources for all this other to use the best cameras and get the best actors and film in beautiful locations, then you should get the casting right. However, my understanding from the reading I've done is that it's really hard for them to find older Asians in Hollywood productions. That it's just really, there's not enough of those actors in Hollywood. They're just not in the pipeline. The talent agents don't have access to them. They're not there. So, okay, this I get. So, but if you did not know, her tones are all messed up. I didn't ask about his, but he's not supposed to be a native-born Vietnamese speaker. However, his backstory of being someone who spent a year surfing in Vietnam, and yet he's got this fluent Vietnamese going on, is ridiculous. Vietnamese is really, all those tonal languages are really hard to learn. So the authenticity is already taking a hit. Not in a superficial way. If you're just watching the episode, these are things you're not going to pick up on. But, and it will continue, the second reason why I wanted to do a commentary is I lived for 15 years in San Francisco. And so what you're going to see is that the realism of the city is not legit. Again, it looks like San Francisco, the setting is there, but little details about the city don't match up. And this message she's going to read from her missing daughter, I had the Vietnamese translated, and it does not match. So from what I remember, this message is, I miss you, I hope to see you again soon, and here's some money. But when he takes the message and shows it to I assume they're Viet Q, which means expatriate Vietnamese or children of Vietnamese. They translate it as, I wish I could see you, but I can't. But her message is, I will see you soon. So there's a disconnect between the message that is conveyed to him about the meaning of that from the two Vietnamese when he goes later to see the man and the woman, and what the message really says. And someone on Reddit pointed out maybe there's a plot reason for that. Maybe the people she stayed with are hiding something from the detective, or maybe it's just a mess up. Because like I said, often in Hollywood, what the message says, what the people are saying, what the subtitles say they're communicating is often not correct. So let me turn on the sound and we'll get back to the show. One thing I noticed was that the music is much more frequent in this episode. It was so spare in the first season. It was almost like a European film. And the way it was scored in the first season was it was either scored to scenes that were angelic or demonic. But it's much more common here in this first episode. Right. So something that was mentioned to me in my discussions with my coworkers was that the accent of those two actors is better. They get the tones. I think it was remarked that they don't sound native born, but that the tones are correct. So these would be much more Viet Q. My pronunciation is probably wrong, but it just means either children of Vietnamese or expatriated Vietnamese, second generation Vietnamese, so on. People who haven't lived their lives in Vietnam or the majority of their lives. But their tones are correct, whereas hers is just are whack. I think she has no tones. Again, something I would never have noticed, but so I'm so glad that I checked with my coworkers, because that lends to the authenticity. Oh, another thing I wanted to mention, that's the reason why I wanted to do this commentary, was, hold on, let me get the sound, that it was curious that they chose San Francisco for Vietnamese community, because it's not, San Francisco doesn't really have a Vietnamese community. It has Japanese, Chinese most specifically, but that Vietnamese are more common in Los Angeles. That's where they are. That's where you have the Vietnamese expats. So there must be a story reason why all this takes place in San Francisco, and so they located this family in San Francisco. Of course, it's not impossible, but in my 15 years in San Francisco, the majority of people I met who had some sort of Asian ancestry or were from Asian were Chinese, with some, I'm saying, I think Koreans and very few Japanese. almost never did I ever meet anyone Vietnamese expat from living in the Bay Area. So there must be a story reason. I think it has to do with the tech industry because of the figure later who shows up, who designed the game, and so of course they want to set it near the tech industry to make sense. But as far as Vietnamese in San Francisco, that's not a thing. And so another thing about the Bay Area that just makes sense, their real estate is so tight right now because of the pressure on the real estate market from the tech industry living there. You had, when I lived there, you would rent, you could find a 1-bedroom studio for maybe $1,200, and when I left, it was similar to that, but a few years after that, the real estate market got crazy for various reasons I won't discuss here. But $3,000 would have been the going cost of a 1-bedroom studio in San Francisco. You're not even in Oakland, in San Jose, just everywhere in the Bay Area, real estate is really crazy tight right now. You would not find this mansion just sitting there undeveloped. I know they explained that the millionaire, I forget his name, was the person who bought this, but then why would he leave it unused? It just feels not legitimate to someone who lived in the Bay Area for so long and knows the living situation, the political situation of the area still.
As I said.
It does say San Francisco, but they took the BART from San Francisco to the East Bay to see the family, and the kid led them up the steps. Did they take the BART back into San Francisco? That makes no sense. And that was definitely a San Francisco locale. I must have got lost in the story. So either I didn't pay enough attention or they're being a little bit sloppy about the story, but I'm very confused here. Okay, so I did a little rewatching, and what I noticed was I was correct. They went to the East Bay from San Francisco. That was the BART they were taking. BART's the transit system for East Bay, and you can take a BART under the bay between San Francisco and Oakland, and that's what they did. And then they were in San Francisco where the house was, so that was a weird jump that the boy casually led him to some location that was across the water. I think that was just a flat-out mistake. I really like this scene. I don't know why they had us outside this room and had us reading the subtitles. It's very curious. I know he said that he can't hear, so maybe that had something to do with it, some reason why they decided that rather than have us hear him speak, because usually someone who's deaf and can't hear, their speech is affected. Maybe they felt as an actor he couldn't pull that off, or maybe there was some other reason for us to be outside this scene. But it's all very curious, and you have the music, the loud music there playing while they're speaking. That's another curious difference in the way they scored this season. It's at least in this first episode, much more music, and it's not thematically used in the same way that it was in the first season. Now here's another problem. Again, because the real estate is just so crazy expensive in the Bay Area, you would not see these abandoned, unused houses because someone is going to become a millionaire just selling that house. So they're not going to leave it sitting like this. Not even in the East Bay, which is not as affluent as San Francisco. That's a nice touch with the bicycles up there. I didn't notice that the first 2 times. I like that. Bicycles are really common in San Francisco too for getting around.
Who the hell are you?
Why was she pulling up her dress? That's some things I'm noticing I didn't notice the first 2 times. Huh, wonder what that's supposed to imply. This is really nice design, these graffiti and drawing on the walls. So these are nice little touches I didn't notice the first 2 times. Look at this, the chemicals symbols there.
Anybody recognize this girl?
I don't get this scene where he can't just hold up his phone, show it around. He has to send it as a phone. I get the point. It's supposed to be they're so involved in their online world that they can't look up, and the only way to get their attention is to send them a message, even when you're sitting in the same room. But that's just a little bit forced for me. Another thing you won't see in East Bay or San Francisco, wide open parking. That's just ludicrous. And I believe this is San Francisco because of these hills. You'll never see parking like that. Available parking.
And that's why.
So if we go on the theory that he is a jumper, somebody from an alternative universe, the theory on Reddit is that this game is meant to find people who have jumped. The people who have jumped will be the ones who will naturally win. So he would naturally be good at this game. And since he gets past this level, that's one indication that he is also a jumper. That this game is a honeypot to attract people who are from another universe. And we see that later on Hap is also looking for those people. But it's the tech person who's involved with Prairie's alternate universe persona, who I think is the one that's funding this game. So I'm a little confused. It looks like there are two people concurrently, Hap and the tech person, who are trying to find these jumpers. This actress is Melora Waters. Let me check it. Melora Waters. She has worked with P.T. Anderson. She was in Magnolia and in Boogie Nights. And her character's name is Melody. And the name of the game that the people are playing that's financed by the Peter Thiel character is called Symphony. So there's some connection between music and the story. I'm not quite sure what it is. I suspect it has to do with the afterworld, especially the way that they scored the first season. The music was usually only used to refer to either angelic or demonic characters, and I think it's not an accident that this person who acts as a guide for Prairie, for OA, is named Melody, and that the game that other people are playing, that is, we think, I suspect, is meant to screen for people who can travel to the afterworld. The name of that game is Symphony. I believe there is a real connection between music and the afterworld within the story, a thematic connection. High-strung spectrum-y math types, and we saw in that house in Oakland the chemical symbols on the wall. So there's definitely something to that. Real world San Francisco, come on, it's there. Real world San Francisco Treasure Island was formerly a place for the World's Fair, I believe, and then it was used by the military, and then it became pseudo business / entertainment area. I don't believe there is any kind of hospital there. It's a prime real estate property. Like, they make television shows. Nash Bridges was being filmed on Treasure Island. They had sound stages there. So again, this conception of San Francisco is just not real. It's really whack. It's whack.
There are no trash cans in
So I'm guessing these are people who reached that 3rd or 4th level of the game, and they are hired to speak stream of conscious, and those are the key words that they're getting from all those people, and somehow they're hoping that this language will unlock the secret to the spiritual world. That's my guess. Natives don't call it San Francisco, not San Fran. Oh, we hate that. It's got the Dr. Riker beard. That's how you know. That's how you know it's an alternative universe. Homer.
I'd like you to meet the head of the clinic, Dr. Hunter Percy.
So when Homer has his dream in the first season, this is the room he was going to.
Thank you, Dr.
And that's the aquarium where he ate his amoeba thing. Oh, Jason Isaac is so good. Jason Isaacs. The way his face changed there, right here.
It is you, isn't it?
Those lines around his face as he smiles, right here.
Hello, Prairie.
And we're done. That's it. Okay, so I don't think we need to do any sort of after show review, but I hope you enjoyed my commentary for this episode and that you'll join me for the next episode, episode 2, which I assume will be just a review. This is very uncommon. This is the first, actually uncommon, this is the first time I've done a complete episode reaction / review. So that's all for now. Take care and be well.